When it comes to Siacoin, maybe, and the idea of it, let's say, hypothetically going to 5 cents during a fully fledged type of altcoin season, what are my thoughts on that? I'm going to explain in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice. Now, why wouldn't 5 cents surprise me? It's because I'm a big fan of Siacoin's fundamentals. I mean, if we take a look at Sia, what is it focused on, right? It's quite essentially focused on, the way I take a look at it, primarily decentralizing data storage. Why is this a big deal? It's because if we take a look at a lot of data storage nowadays, highly centralized, and it's been working for a while, and I still think it's going to work moving forward, but I don't think that necessarily having decentralization as an option is a bad thing in my opinion, because I actually think that it could bring a unique touch to this space. Let me explain why. If we take a look at, for instance, let me just use like analogy, right? Let's say I want to hide my treasure, and I just hide, let's say, all my treasure in just a very centralized location. I just divide it into, let's say, 5 different places, but then just very tight knit. As opposed to, let's say, I want to hide my treasure, but then it's in 100 different locations throughout different places. Now, if let's say in that very centralized location, let's say 4 gets breached, that's 80% done right there. However, let's say in this 100 different locations, right? Let's say even 30 gets breached. All right, 30% gone. It's not as bad as 80%, the example that I used before. So I think decentralization could hypothetically bring some benefits, even though I think mass adoption may take quite a while, but still I like the concept nonetheless. And we also have to consider the data storage market size, according to Fortune Business Insights, by 2030 is expected to reach nearly $800 billion. Now, the way I view it is that that's just a projection, but if that actually does ever become true, it would be very impressive in terms of that figure. However, sometimes people like to say, but when it comes to Siacoin, it has too many competitors. Oh, the space is oversaturated. Well, actually, I don't have that mindset, because if we take a look at it, what is arguably the most popular decentralized data storage project that we have right now? Arguably, I would say it's Filecoin, and I think number 2 is probably Jasmine. Now, if we take a look at it, I actually still think, even despite Siacoin currently having a market cap that is below $200 million, I still think that even despite that, I think arguably it's still top 5 in terms of popularity. Let me explain why. Because again, beyond Filecoin and as well as Jasmine, many people, sometimes they think about Arweave, they think about, let's say, something called storage, or should I say Storj? It is spelled S-T-O-R-J. Some people say it's storage, some people say it's Storj. But whatever the case is, again, beyond that, we also take a look at Siacoin. Can you imagine that? That's arguably 5, I think, pretty famous competitors within the data storage space, or should I say the projects that are trying to decentralize data storage? And that's not that many, arguably, I think. If we take a look at, for instance, in the case of NFTs, blockchain gaming, decentralized finance, AI, for instance, right? We take a look at just how many competitors they have. I mean, it's very easy to kind of name 10, 15, 20 competitors, right? However, within this niche, beyond 5, it's not like there's that many, right? So then I actually think that Siacoin is in this unique position where, even though, again, the market cap is currently at the time of this recording below $200 million, it's still arguably top 5 in terms of popularity within its niche. So I think this is pretty awesome, and I think it's pretty cool, because when it comes to projects that are focused on decentralizing data storage, the hype is not really, I think, fully there yet. But I think if, let's say, there is a fully fledged type of altcoin season, and let's say there is the hype there, man, I'm very excited when it comes to Siacoin, again, if that were to even happen. Now, at the idea of 5 cents, considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point would be around $2.8 billion. So give or take, basically like nearly $3 billion. But even besides that, it's around a 16x from here. Why wouldn't this surprise me? It's because we've seen Dogecoin back in 2021 reach over $80 billion in market cap. So that's like 20 times more than this. And not to mention, we take a look at how that was years ago, again, back in 2021. During the peak of that bull run, around 300 million crypto owners. Now we have over 600 million, supposedly more than ever before in history. And keep in mind, we have that right now. Imagine if Bitcoin went to 200 grand or 250 or 300 or something like that, or Ethereum went to 10 grand. Would there, quote unquote, be around 600 million crypto owners, or would there hypothetically maybe be over 700 million? Who knows, but that wouldn't surprise me. So if Dogecoin, despite all that, was able to reach those heights back then, what could it reach this time around? And not to mention, how would the way I take a look at it, just in my mind, right? I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but around a $2.8 billion market cap, that wouldn't surprise me, in my opinion. However, also on top of that, it's around a 16x again, like I mentioned before, and some people out there like to think, okay, who cares about that? Well, if let's say Bitcoin went to 300 grand, that's less than a 3x from here, despite the pullback. If Ethereum went to 10 grand, that's also less than a 3x from here. I'm not going to say that around a 16x is the best thing of all time, because how can it? I don't think it is, right? I mean, around a 16x is probably not going to be the best thing of all time during this cycle, if let's say we do ever see a fully fledged type of altcoin season. However, the idea of less than a 3x, it doesn't really excite me. However, again, around a 16x, that's more exciting to me than that. And even if, let's say, Siacoin went to 2.5 cents, so like around an 8x from here, give or take, right? Even at that point, I would still rather hold that instead of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, this is just what I would rather do. I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but this is just my mindset. But even besides all that, some people like to wonder how soon. Now, personally for me, I do not know the future. So what can I do instead, personally? I can take a look at the past at least, and I see how usually altcoins typically, as a worst case scenario, they kind of usually peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. So if we take that 18-month kind of timeline, and we take a look at the last Bitcoin halving event, which happened in April of last year, so in 2024, we had 18 months again on top of that. It's around October this year. Now, is that going to be a surefire date? I don't necessarily think so, because that is based off history. I mean, it could be different this time around, but whenever that timeline is, again, whenever it does decide to even ever happen, be it, let's say, November or December or January of next year, or sometime just around Q1 of 2026, personally for me, all I can do is stay patient, hold, and I just wait. That's it. I've been doing this throughout this whole time, just waiting anyways, so I'm going to keep doing that. However, some people like to say, oh, why don't you pull up a price chart? Well, imagine this. Imagine if I just pulled up a price chart, drew some random triangle. Do you think the market is automatically going to care about what I have to do on there? No, right? Not to mention, some people out there, they draw like, random triangle on a price chart. They say, oh, this is going to happen at this time, and then it doesn't, and then they just keep adjusting the triangle, and then it doesn't, and then they just keep adjusting it. Now, at that point, it's just drawing. I'm not into that, Personally, that's not my style. It's not what I do. I like to focus on the fundamentals and just take a look at more so just kind of what the project is all about, as opposed to just only taking a look at the price chart, because I don't think that necessarily tells the full story when it comes to Sia overall, because, again, if I'm only taking a look at the price, how will I know, kind of the aspects of decentralizing data storage and whatnot when it comes to this project? But again, this is just what I'm doing, so I'm just being patient, holding, and just waiting. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.